Hello and welcome to the dungeons. Dayman here. Today we're talking about how to make space for yourself and your allies. Now, this is an evolution of our class build guide. As before, I was trying to force a D&D sized peg into a Dungeons of Eternity hole, baby. But after playing this game more extensively, I've come to see that there are real roles that you can be playing instead of just trying to fit an RPG narrative. And today we will be talking about making space. And this will not be as constrained as our tank build. Now, the tank build is still relevant, but this time we will be talking about all the ways you can be making space for yourself and your allies. So, what is the purpose of making space before we get started? That is, in order to keep those safe, keep the fight at a decent pace, and to allow there to be some clean up crews. Now, let's talk about our loadout, shall we? Alright, here you see a diversified kit with ice, poison, and fire. It's good to diversify your elements, though this is more talking points, more so than it is a proper loadout. Now, when it comes to your back weapons, we'll be talking about more than just the long sword, as even though it is very good, it is not the best at making space. But let's talk about it first and foremost. Or should I say first and firstmost? Now, we will also be discussing mythical weapons in this video, so stay tuned for that. Now, when it comes to your longsword, I recommend the longest boy, none of these snub-nosed bastards. But there is an edge case for a few of the models I do possess. The reason for that is you can take advantage of lower hitbox unguarded by your enemies. But here we're going to see an unblockable ice sword. Now, unblockable does not truly mean unblockable. It gets past damage resistance and allows you to activate those elemental perks. Now, I love the elements on my greatsword. Now, when it comes to the elements, I suggest the longsword makes the most out of all three. If you've been staying tuned, you know this to be true. Ice is great because you're in the fray. Though over here, I have, it's not as long, but I love that it's attack, power, ice, and vampire. Also a very pretty blade if you ask it me. I wish you could actually, two-hand that baby. Now, I recommend also a fire and attack power. This one also has knockback distance. Now, I typically don't recommend knockback distance, as it can be a bit of a nuisance to your allies. So when you're using your knockback, what I recommend you do is for your ranged allies, knocking enemies to the floor when you see that they are targeting them. That way, they can clean up while they stand up. And if you have melee allies fighting in a corner or in a small room, instead of knocking them into the air or even knocking them to the floor, knock them into a wall. That way, they can take additional damage on collision, and it makes it just that much easier for your melee combatants to clean up. Man, I just love a molten sword. Oh. Now, when it also comes to knockback, when you are going to be sending enemies careening through the air, if you're going to do so as a means of creating space. If you see your melee combatant fighting anywhere between 3 to 5 enemies, start to thin that horde, move over, and knock a few of them back. That way they can deal with that fight at their own pace. Another way of making space doesn't even require that you use such a blade as this. You can also simply start drawing aggression from incoming crowds, right? Keep that guard up, and make sure that space provided to your enemies, to your allies, is by taking the aggression of your enemies. And that's also a great time to start knocking them back. Now, when we are discussing our side weapons, we also are going to look at diversifying our elements. Now, we're not completely done talking about our back weapons, but let's get into it here. With the sword, or with the side weapons such as a cudgel or hammer, these have access to area damage, similar to an axe's explosions, which make them excellent space-making tools. And with the slowing perk, pairing that with poison, boy oh boy, you can start to dictate the pace of any fight you're in. So, I recommend area damage. However, if you are also rocking a slowing weapon, it'll take priority over area damage. But don't let that dissuade you, as once an enemy is slowed, then you're only rolling area damage, and it can be a convenient way of getting off that massive radius, or it's not massive, but that radius damage. Also that you can punch with it, but that's neither here nor there. Now, poison, it keels over enemies. And if you are going to be using poison to make space, I would recommend letting people know, hey, I'm running a poison build. And when we're in the dungeon, let's let them stay keeled over to get that damage over time, as it might potentially be doing 25% of an enemy's health while they're just sitting there. So that way, when you poison an enemy, you can yell out, poison! And that'll let people know to back off. Now, with your axe, I already mentioned that it is great for explosions. It is the only side weapon with explosions, just like this is the only side weapon with area damage or slowing. So, explosions and fire do the same thing, meaning having them paired up on a weapon such as this is fire and explosions, makes it far more likely for those radiuses to knock enemies back. Now, what's wonderful about both of these weapons is they are great at being thrown, allowing you to trigger those explosions and area damage at all ranges. So, you can be an aid to your allies even when you're not in the fray. We're not completely done talking about our hip weapons, but let's shoot back to our back. Now, the greatsword is great. You won't get any arguments from me, but it's a playstyle choice and doesn't work for everybody. And there are better ways of making space, and that is going to involve our Shockwave Staff. Here we're going to get into a little bit of nuance, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, but I'm going to turn on our Juggernaut perk, as this goes great with a shield. Now, typically with a Shockwave Staff, you want to wait for it to charge, and then move in, creating tendrils of energy, and then release for that massive knockback. This is more of a spacing tool when things get hairy, more so than an always active space-making tool like the longsword. But when you have the shield and the Shockwave Staff, now we're cooking, because you can be making space for yourself while you charge and clean up the rest. Now, mind you this, the Shockwave Staff does not do a full 360 radius. It doesn't cover the small cone behind your back. So, you might have to position yourself around enemies in order to get that radius off. So keep that in mind. Now, moving to other back slots for making space. I actually love the Force Staff. It is a bit energy expensive for what it is, but while charged, all you have to do is go through and any contact is going to clean up. Now, this is a little less, it's kind of like the radius shockwave of the mythical hammer. Meaning, think about it as a sphere around the head. So whichever direction you hit it, it's going to push them off from. So just because you push an enemy with the forward, they might fly off to the side. So think about the direction by which you are making contact with your staff. Now, the gravity staff. Man, this thing is it's there for fun, guys. It's there for fun. It's super energy expensive in terms of its power gem. And it's really there to set up your allies or pick enemies up and drop them into pits. And if you are going to be using it as a more consistent tool, I recommend just kind of touching them with it and then like pulling them to the floor, or even just picking them up off the ground for a second, as that's going to cause them to drop to the ground instead of smashing them all about, wasting all that energy. No. Use that stand-up time. Pick them up, drop them, and when they hit the floor, then just like the knockback of your greatsword, your allies can clean up. All right. Though the Chrono Staff and the Ice Staff are good for aiding your allies, they're not really space-making tools, and therefore I will not be discussing them. So, let's talk about mythical weapons. That's right. We're going to be discussing mythical weapons here. And I know the general perception, especially when you think about the Greatsword, I'm going to suggest a mythic Mondante. But let's be honest, guys, this is not the best space-making tool. Though its spires and can create space for you, they're not the most efficient tool at doing it. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. But there are better mythical weapons for making space. A quick note here on this weapon is you need to know that if you are going to use this for making space, you can do this with a bit of strategy. The spires go in the direction you're looking, not in the direction that you strike. So you can be at a fight here, see an ally in the fray, turn your head, and then strike the floor and aid them, even while you're not in that fight. So in that case, it is a semi-decent weapon, despite its one-and-done effect. Now, the spear, I've talked about this before, but the spear, it can stagger all enemy types, and you can keep enemies back. So if you notice enemies are running towards your allies, you can keep them staggered. But it's not really a space-making tool. However, it's good at keeping space. With a shield keeping space with that in front of you, enemies tend to get caught up on the tip. And hey, I enjoy it, and you'll never hear me talking nothing bad about Spear Waifu. Not to mention its explosions, very similar to our axe and area damage, are very good. But it's not the best at making space, even for your back slot. The best weapon of the mythical variety for creating space is the bow. Now, Dayman is booty garbage when it comes to archery, but simply by shooting at the floor or near your allies, or even just at an enemy, you can be creating space every, 20 or so seconds? Pretty long cooldown, so, Now, the best mythical weapon on your hips for creating space is gonna be that hammer. It's hammer time, always hammer time on this channel. I typically pair it on my left, as I keep my left as more of a support option than the go-to throw of my right. Now, it can be done simply by dropping it, striking it against an enemy, even smacking the hammer can allow for it to be activated, as well as being thrown. What's wonderful is, unlike the bow's 20-second or the average 10-second of a mythical weapon, this has a 5-second cooldown, making it like having a bomb on cooldown. Oh man, I love it. Not to mention, it also has access to area damage and slowing, so oh yeah. Now, more than an honorable mention, as it's nearly tied, if not for its slower cooldown, the mythical side sword. Man, I didn't realize how good this thing was at making space. That charge period, those slashes that you can send out, do knockback and explosions. It's like throwing a fireball that actually knocks things down. I love this weapon. Now, the If you want to have an amazing loadout for, now this is a mythical loadout for creating space, the only thing you're missing now is Shield Chan. Now this thing is amazing at making space for reasons you might not realize. And let's be honest, we typically think of making space as a continuous movement thing, but the shield has secret tech with teleport. So if you're a teleporter, you can also be making space. What with your bow, a shield, and the hammer. All of these are great ways of making space. Now I'm going to put you onto some game here. Something you might not have known. I'm going to launch an enemy, and I'll quickly talk about another way the shield makes space. Now, you can rush at enemies with the shield and knock them back with the mythical shield. It's one of its always on abilities. Though you can still take damage, is why I recommend creating kind of a cone and protecting your body so you don't get hit while you rush forward. Now, that aside, let's get into some secret tech. Something special for you here. Here we have our teleport movement. And with teleport on, what I do is, whenever they touch me, they go flying back, which is not possible while in continuous movement. Simply them striking it, they go flying. And this is because that's because the rush attack is not present while in teleport, but the devs thought of this and made it possible. Now, just to prove that that's not possible, see him hitting my shield in every which way, and he does not go flying unless I run at him. So, now that we covered our loadout, what do our exos look like for our space-making build? There's a little bit of nuance here, and a bit of a surprising take. Now, stillness is always good. I love stillness. Especially because it's going to be your primary form of healing. Yeah, run Vitality if you want to run Vitality. I won't take that away from you. And armor is great because it'll make it almost like you're the last person standing in almost any fray, granting you the option to, take that pause recovery, get some potions going. But here's an amazing chest perk, Blast. Now, the fact that you take 80% less damage from explosions, whether you're in the underworld with lost souls, or you're doing kamikaze fighters in Lava Forge, or tiny wasps in the sandstorm, the blast radius, now you become the sacrificial lamb. When something is about to charge at your allies and blow up, you can be the one rushing into that fray and taking the blow and practically not taking any damage at all. It's a little bit of a surprise take there. Now, Juggernaut, as mentioned, is very good, but if you're not running a weapon that pairs well with a shield, like the bow or the longsword, haste is amazing because as we are making space, it's good to be able to get around that battlefield where you're needed. Now, when it comes to the arms perks, there are 4 perks available to you for making space. The obvious is power. That's just allowing you to just deal more damage. The next is might for those thrown weapons for axe and hammer. Wonderful picks. If you are going for a more of a staff build for making space, then the Gemini is a no-brainer. But if you are running fire, criticals, explosions, on any, or area damage on any of your weapons, additional crits make it a phenomenal choice. So, with these things in mind, we're ready to start making space for our allies. And there's one last thing you need to know. We have bomb babies. Now, bombs are a somewhat slept on piece of equipment, as these things they're basically mythic weapons on your hips. Why aren't we using them, guys? Let's use them. So if you're thinking about making space in the dungeon, think about your bombs, your ice potions, as well as, for as long as this holiday season goes, we have cute little jack-o'-lanterns. And these detonate instantaneously and send out 4 shockwaves, where this has a bit of a delay. And now, the last thing about the bombs, if you don't already know, you should already know, but you can recall that, and it'll reset the fuse. So if you miss that opportunity to throw it, and it doesn't get to its the enemy you want to strike, you can recall it and then throw it again. Unfortunately, those pumpkin bombs detonate instantaneously. Now, by November 10th, 2025, those bombs might be gone. Let's hope they stick around as a retextured new bomb, because I love having 6 bombs, baby. Alright. With all this in mind, remember to disinfect your face mask and wash your face. Dayman out. Peace.